All right, welcome to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with my boy E. And today we have a special guest with us today, E. So why don't you introduce our special guest?
Yes, we have Gavin Bethell with us today. He's a sports videographer, very busy at it because I've seen him on Instagram. He's always doing something, always shooting something. Huge following on Instagram. First of all, how are you, Gavin?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Very, very happy to have you because you're actually our first photographer. So we try to, we want to expand, we want to explore and also give people a chance to learn from people who have skills that we definitely do not have. Okay. So very excited to get your input into sports photography today. Okay. So, well, I guess we'll get started with the from the start. So, I'm curious to know what was your journey like. How did you get into sports photography? How did you get started? How did you get into it? How did you catch the bug?
I played basketball in high school, and then I came into America in 2000 to play at college. And then after college, I met my wife during college. After college, it was my dream to go play overseas. So I got a contract in Iceland and we'd had our first kid. So I was like, babe, I'm going to go over. It's only a 4-month season. Everything could be okay. I got to Iceland and after 2 days, I missed my wife and kid. And I was like, nah, I want to go home. And I realized the money was decent, but it wasn't going to make me wealthy. It wasn't going to get me to the point where I could move my family over there. So I had to have a moment of clarity and really think if it was worth it. And it was kind of funny because where I was in Iceland, I had no idea what to expect. And it's a wild place. It's a beautiful place. So 3-4 feet of snow. And then I looked over the street and there was giant boulders. So I was bored one night. I went over and I climbed up, and it was one of them lagoons that they talk about. So a hot spring kind of lagoon with I forget what they call it now. All the lights in the sky, the northern lights. So what the hell is this? So I go in and I just sit there. And that's when I really started thinking about life and everything. And it was kind of surreal. It might sound corny, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, so what? This is my life. I came to America. I had a rough upbringing. This was kind of my escape plan. I met my wife who changed me for the better because I was a bit of an asshole back in the day, excuse my language. And I just decided I was going to quit. So I came back into America and I finished my degree. And lived happily ever after. But then I still played basketball in the old guy leagues, and I hit my knee, and then I hit my other knee, and then my hip started going out, and I was like, yeah, it's over. So I always used to be that guy with a phone taking pictures of everything, with the family. And my wife used to call me the paparazzi. So I was like, let me go buy a camera. So I went on Facebook in Marketplace and got a Nikon D3500, very entry level, and a kit lens. So I just started going into some games and then into my son's games and taking pictures. And I kind of got addicted right away. I was like, yeah, I really like this. And then I bought a 50mm f1.8, and that kind of took it to the next level, especially because I could get right on the baseline. And then from there, I started getting a couple of bookings. I upgraded my equipment. And for the first year, I'll travel as a Philadelphia. I live in Delaware, so I'll travel as a Philadelphia. I'm in Arresta, PA. I'll go to Jersey. I go to Maryland. I'll go to all the AAU events. And then I built kind of a half-decent following. And then from Instagram, more and more bookings have started coming in. So I just kind of progressed it from there. But I'm with me, I'm self-taught to the extreme. I'll end off YouTube, and there's a Facebook page called Sports Photography No BS. And when they say no BS,
part of it too,
oh my God, it's calmed down a bit these days, but when I was in, so I'll post pictures because my friend said, "Yeah, you post your pictures, you get all this feedback." I'm like, great. So I'll post pictures, some positivity, but people would tear my work apart. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm really crap at this. And then a friend said, all you do is take the positive and ignore the rest and implement it. Then even with some of the negative comments, they had a point. It was just their delivery, so I'd start using that. And then just kind of started evolving and just learning ways how to do it myself. I'm not a technical guy, like with all the terms. Like I don't know and understand all the terms of photography. And this might sound silly, but even with depth of field, I don't even understand that because my thing is a lot of people say you can't shoot sports at low aperture. You can, as long as you nail focus. And I've been told in the past that I shot this game at f1.2, and people are like, "No, you didn't," and I get messages, "That's cap," and I'm like, "I did." "No, you can't do it. It's too shallow depth of field." I'm like, "No, you can as long as you nail focus." So I just kind of let all the technical stuff go. I found my way of doing it, and then I just kind of roll with it.
That's awesome because I feel like usually a lot of people just focus too much on the technical side, especially if you watch YouTube and let's say you're shopping for a new camera and they're talking about little like super specific technical issues that might, if you're filming a movie might become a problem. When you're filming a basketball game, like no one's going to notice, but people get in their heads with these things because as a YouTuber reviewing a camera, you have to say something negative about it. So you'll say a couple things, but then it becomes a huge thing. And yeah, people focus on that way too much, in my opinion. So I like the fact that you're focusing on what really matters.
Because I used to go on YouTube as well to kind of check out cameras and lenses. And then I quickly learned, like a lot of the people I was watching, like they say a lot of negative stuff except for the brand that they used. So what I started doing is just taking a chance, and I buy everything used. And I stuck it to Nikon, and everyone said, "Oh, now the Z cameras aren't good for sports." And I'm like, "Yes, they are." So we had a Z6, then we had a Z6 II, and then there was actually a crazy story because someone on Instagram actually gifted me a Z8 recently,
Oh, wow.
along with a Z lens, which was awesome. That's a whole other ball game. Like I went in from the Z6 II to the Z8, and I just thought it would be like a regular step up. That camera's a whole other beast. So it's a learning curve.
So, Gavin, when you were looking on YouTube to learn sports photography, what were you looking for? Like, what were you searching to find to try and learn this craft?
A lot of the times it was just about settings. Like the biggest thing, like we all know, and when it comes to it's a photography or videography, it's settings, and that's the biggest part. And then like the next part is the editing process. So that was my whole thing. Is just trying to learn the settings. But trying to go on videos that the people knew what they were talking about, because there's a lot of videos out there that I watch, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. So I found out a group of people who knew what they were talking about. And yeah, it was just about settings and editing, and then composition. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, composition is very overlooked in sports because, we follow the action. So we forget that, sometimes it's up to you as well that sort of position yourself in a way that
Mm-hmm.
the action is going to make more sense or just going to be,
Right.
prettier, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a moment like when, as you're progressing, as you're learning, is there a moment that you remember where you're like, all right, now I think I'm kind of, I've got this. Like, was there like a key moment where you felt like, all right, now I can consider myself like a serious sort of photographer?
Maybe after 3 years, because I've been doing it for 6 years. After 3 years, I started getting a lot less hate on the Facebook page. And then it was all positive for the most part. And I was like, okay, that's a good sign. And then it just comparing myself into some of my favorites. And I've got to say, one of my favorite sports photographers is a guy from Philly. His name is Zamani Feelings. He's in that Facebook page, but he's really good, and he's one of the best guys ever. Like he answers all questions. You can message him any time of day, and he answers questions. On top of being a fantastic photographer, so yeah, I just always wanted to compare my work to other people's and be honest with myself. But I'm still learning. I mean, it's always a learning curve. That's the thing with me. Like I always want to keep learning off other people and people who are better than me. But this is my part-time job. This is my part-time business. So at times it feels full-time, but yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine it looks full time.
Yeah, it looks full time on your Instagram. Like
Right.
you look busy, so that's good, man. That's a great thing considering it's a part time passion. It's perfect.
Yeah, I love it.
Now on your socials, you always post a lot. People are always asking, "How do I get access? How do I get into these venues?" So, what are some of the tips and tricks that you've done to get access to build relationships with either teams and athletes? Because this is something that you get asked daily. We get asked quite often, but not as much as you, it seems, compared to on your Instagram.
So, yeah, so that it gets kind of frustrating, and only for one reason. It's a lot of the young generation. So they buy a camera, they start shooting. And it's no disrespect, but they're at a very entry level, and the pictures are very entry level work. Yet they want to get access to these events, and they want to shoot college sports. And I understand the desire, but you have to put the work in. Like you can't go from here to here straight away. So I try and tell them that, but a lot of the time, the younger generation are a bit stubborn and they don't want to hear it. But the biggest part is, like you said, it's all about networking. And with me at the beginning, when I was going around to different states and different schools, I was meeting all these people. And at all the events, I was talking to other photographers. And like in in the second year, I met this one guy who I love it to death. Josh Fillin, his name is. He runs a basketball media group in Philly. And he was sitting on the floor, and he had a laptop, he had his camera, he had a book, and he was basically doing homework, photography, and stats at the same time. And I was like, "What's this guy doing?" So I broke the ice and spoke to him, and then he was like, "Oh, can I see your Instagram?" And he was like, "If you ever want to shoot any college games in Philly, I can get you in if you want to send me some pictures." So he got me into the college scene to start with, which was awesome. Um, And then with the AAU events or the high level high school, again, it's about your connections and it's about how much work you do. So you've got to put work in and you've got to know people. So yeah, it's just all about the connections that you build, and that takes time.
And do you think, like, for someone who's just starting, is it still possible to have access to, let's say, like a lower level sort of high school game, like maybe a school that doesn't really have any, videography or photography going themselves, like a D3 or something
Right.
like that? Like, is that
Yeah,
possible? Is that like a...
you can get into local high schools, I think, in most states. Now, if you want to go to these high ranked schools, it'll be harder. But if you want to go to like a lower level school, a middle school game, all you have to do is reach out to the athletic director and present it in a professional manner. And for the most part, offer them some free images because everyone likes free. And I always tell all the kids as well, I'm like, stop focusing on the D1 schools. D3 and D2 in Delaware and our surrounding areas, they don't have much of a media budget and they'll basically let anyone in. I'm like, again, all you have to do, don't reach out to the AD of a college. When it gets into college, then you go into the media department and you got to present a professional looking email. And for the most part, you'll get access, like a lot of the kids in Delaware who are trying, who I try and help, a mentor. I had taught them how to get access into the local Division 2, Division 3 schools. But yeah, it's not hard at all to get into the lower level. And again, I tell them it's not about the level of players that you shoot. It's all about the quality of your work. Now, you can get great pictures of mediocre players as long as you're in the right position, in the right angle, and you know what you're doing. But everyone is so focused on the highest level.
Yeah.
But,
And it's those photos that are going to get you to those bigger games.
Like a lot of friends I have who shoot at the highest level, they said that when they first got into it, that their portfolio, that it actually included images from high schools and middle schools, because they were great images. No one cares who it is. Like I told this one kid, a crappy picture of LeBron James is still a crappy picture, regardless if it's LeBron James.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it doesn't matter who's in the picture, right? It's the actual picture you're looking at.
right.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Gavin, like, do you still do any free work for your portfolio sometimes, or is it all just paid college sports and that you mostly do?
So to be perfectly honest, I haven't even got a portfolio. I definitely do free work, just because I enjoy it. Like if there's certain games or events I want to go to, I want to go to it to have fun. Like I like money. Yes, I like getting paid. But for the most part, like I'm a hoop head, born and raised. I love basketball, and this was my way of staying involved in the game. So yeah, I still go places if for free, and then I'll go to local high schools who I know haven't got a budget, and I know that the kids can't pay for pictures, and I'll go shoot and I'll give them pictures if for free. So yeah, it's not all about the money with me. Like I just love photography.
So when you do that, when you go to these high school games, is it you basically doing this for them, and it's your way to help like the local basketball scene, or is it for you to just sort of, a passion project, or just something that you want to eventually build your portfolio or for your Instagram, or like what's the
It's a
reasoning
mixture of
behind it?
both. It's a mixture of both. It's not for Instagram. Like I just kind of wing it on Instagram. If I get pictures of a game I like, I post them. If I decide I want to make a reel, I'll just wing it and post this. Some are helpful, some are stupid,
It's working.
some are disrespectful, but I just kind of have fun with it. And the biggest thing is I just always want to be me. Like I'm never going to change me. Like I'm a bit rough around the edges, and that's just who I am.
Well, your Instagram, you seem very authentic. You could see that off your feed right away. That's the first thing that I got is with you is what you see is what you get. You tell people what they're getting and there's no expectations. You tell them, hey, this is who I am. And I think that is amazing because that's what attracted me to your account right away. Like when E said that we were going to have you on the show, I already knew who you were. I was like, oh, wow, that's great. But it was your authenticity that I really, really loved. And I think that's amazing because not everybody does that. A lot of people just post their pictures. They'll just post the good stuff where you post the good and the bad because of this job, there are some bad days. There are some hiccups. There are some corners that you didn't see that you were coming up to. And I love how you show everybody that clarity.
See, and to touch on that, so with posting work that isn't your best work, what I try and tell people is if for people who shoot NBA or high level college, they're shooting in places that have got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of lights. That makes photography extremely easy. When you're shooting in a place where your ISO is 8,000, 10,000, 12,500 or higher, it's a whole nother ball game. So I like to show pictures that are shot in good lights and bad lights because it's still a good picture whether it was taken in good or bad light or not. But a lot of people don't understand that and they're like, they're not as good as your normal ones. And I'm like, no, they're not. But there's a reason behind it.
Yeah,
You can only do so
definitely.
much in editing.
Yeah, because the only thing I know about sports photography is that the shutter speed has to be quite high. So yeah, that means the ISO has to make up for that. So
And I always argue
certain
with
gems,
people because when I post and say things, people say, no, you can drop your shutter speed down to 800 or 500 for sports. And I'm like, no, you can't. Like if you want to shoot a guy on a foul line, yeah, 800, 500 is fine. If you want to get someone who's dribbling, if they're bringing the ball up slow and you get it at the peak of the dribble when it's at the hand, yeah. But if you're going to try and shoot someone dunking the ball or driving through the lane at 500 or 800, you're going to have a whole lot of motion blur. So I always shoot at 1,000. If the light's good, I go to 1250.
Well, that's good. Well, usually that's a perfect segue where
Yeah,
I'll let you go, Lance, but I feel like we're
say,
going into the technical side.
well, because talking about like game day and that. So what's in your game day camera bag? What's your camera bag look like on a game day?
Let me see, I've got it right here. So for the most part, if I've got, so for indoor sports, I'll have my Nikon Z8 and my Nikon Z6 II with the FTZ adapter. At the moment, a Tamron G2 70-200, although I just ordered a Nikon 70-200. It's not the Z mounted, it's the F mounted, but it's a good one. I'll have a 50mm. I'll have the Mikey 85 1.4, the Viltrox 75 1.2 APS-C. I think that's about it. If for indoor sports, and then of course batteries, an air blower, because I'm OCD about dust. Like every game, spraying. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So you have one camera and multiple lenses.
Two cameras.
So
Two cameras.
Oh, two cameras. Oh, yeah, two. Yeah, sorry. All right. So you have them both sort of ready to go, and like one has like a longer lens and the other one has a wider one. Is that how you kind of go about it?
It depends what I'm shooting, like what type of game it is. If I'm going for fun, it'll probably just be the 70-200. If it's a paid gig, then I'll throw on either a 50mm or the 35, just so I can get the shots under the basket. So I'll rotate it from the corners, and then I'll go like the referees don't always let you go directly under the basket, but you can get to the outside of the paint, which is just as good. So I can get the players coming in at a wider angle. So for a lot of the time, I just like a 70-200.
And are you always shooting sort of from the baseline, or do you move around sometimes to get like different angles?
To be honest, like I think I need to move around more. I do kind of stay on the baseline and rotate, but I'd like to start getting up in the stands, especially at colleges. Like get up there, I can take my 300 to 2.8 and really get up high and get some cool shots. So that's one thing. That was one of my goals for this year was to start experimenting with different angles.
They don't lock you guys into angles or anything? So we've done NBA recently, and basically you have your box.
G League.
G League. Well, I did NBA. You did G League, but you're locked in the box, and it's pretty uncomfortable. Well, at least for a videographer, it's uncomfortable. How is it for you? And you have carte blanche. You can move around, no problem, or are you stuck in that area too?
No, well, with so I've always wanted to shoot NBA. I've just always run into dead ends. I've never got an opportunity. I shot 176ers game from the 20th row, but it was cool. I had fun. I shoot I shoot a lot of the 76ers, a G League team. But when it comes into college, like when it's higher level stuff, just like in the NBA, like you'll get assigned a position, and aside from that position, like you can leave and you can get away if you want to go up in the concourse. But on the baseline, you're stuck in that one spot, like you said. So you just make the best out of what you've got.
Well, I think as well, like, because like for us with video, if I'm shooting, from the side or from behind, obviously I don't want all my video to be like that. But a few shots like that in a video mixed with other shots is going to look great.
Yeah.
Where for photography, I assume like you can't really shoot the back of people's heads. Like you need to have them come in front on.
That's one of my irks that I try and teach to the young guys. I'm like, you have to position yourself on the side where the player's going to open up, so you're going to get the angle of the face or get underneath. Because I see too many pictures of people's backs, and I'm like, it's a good picture, but if you want to improve it, change angles if you can, and if you can't, I just kind of wait until the right time comes. But yeah, the angles is very important, like, you know. And then I like to lay down a lot as well, just to get as low
Oh
as
yeah.
possible. Yeah, because the lower you get, like I'm sure you know, like the lower you get, like the larger the player looks, the more athletic a player looks. So especially when I go into less talented teams and to youth sports, like I'm 6'5", so if I'm standing up, like I'm looking down on them,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
doesn't look good. Then if I sit down, I'm still at least on eye level. So, not like if I'm on a stool, sorry. Then if I get on the floor, it's better. But if I lay down, that's when it really brings out. Like it
So the
looks a lot
people in the
better.
front row, the people in the front row appreciate then when you lie down on your stomach, you're not blocking them anymore. They're good.
It depends on the level of play. Like if it's
Yeah.
at the highest level where you're stuck, I don't know if I'll get away with it. But with me, anytime I'm able to, I will. But it just depends on the availability. Like if I can move, I'll move. If I can lay down, I will. If I can't,
So that's like, because my next question was going to be about like how you get emotions, because that's like in photos, like that's what we want. Like we want to see as much emotion in the shot as
Mhm.
possible. So like getting down low, I'm assuming is one way of doing that. Like, is there any other tricks that you use to try to maximize the emotion in the shot?
I like I'll shoot the action, and then like if there's a big play, immediately after the action, I'll zoom over to the bench. And the next time after a big play, I'm in the crowd, or I turn to the players who I know are going to be coming and dapping them up, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, like yesterday, it was the Philadelphia finals, and I got home and I was editing, and I was like, "Yeah, I like these pictures. The action ones are good, but I like the emotion ones better." And I was like, "I'm just going to use them." So one of the guy at the end of the game, it was a 3-point win, and he's jumping up in the middle of his teammates, and then with the girls' final. They're hugging at the end. There's a girl hugging her father, the crowd. So I was happier with like the raw emotion of the non-action than in the actual action.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But,
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's just the play is one thing, but it's after the play where you get the emotion. You know what I mean? Whether it's the player, the
Yeah.
fans, the bench, or the teammates.
So what's the most challenging part of being a sports photographer?
I'd say lighting. Like for me, like because I don't shoot NBA, like I shoot at a lot of high schools, and high schools across the country are known for not having good light. I'm assuming hundreds of thousands of dollars are just aren't in the budget. So when
Yeah.
they go in any particular place, like I'm staying at 1,000 shutter speed. I don't care what the light's like. I, and I'll play around with my aperture from 2.8 all the way down to 1.2. But there's times where I'll still be at 8,000, 10,000 or above. Now, a lot of people, eh, they don't like it to shoot a high ISO, and they'd rather shoot underexposed. And I tell them, I'm like, if you take pictures underexposed, that's going to bring out the noise and imperfections in editing. It's better if you shoot a higher ISO and then just deal with any imperfections then. It depends on your camera body, obviously, as long as it's a mid-level camera. But that's why we pay all this money. Like you pay all this money so that if the autofocus and for the low light capabilities, so you're supposed to push the ISO.
Well, speaking of settings now, one of the biggest myths is raw, shooting raw. And I talked to some of my photographer friends and they're like, we never shoot raw, we shoot in JPEG. So can you maybe explain that myth? Because us, like E and I, I would think if I'm going to a shoot, I want raw because I have the most flexibility. But in sports, it just takes up way too much space, I am assuming, right?
But for me, it's not necessarily about space. I go through periods where I'll shoot RAW and JPEG. I honestly prefer JPEG because as long as you get the settings right in camera, then you basically got, in my opinion, 3/4 of a finished product already. Then you crop and make some tweaks. So with bad lighting, like I'll go in camera and add the in camera noise reduction and some in camera sharpening. I'll shoot in the vivid profile. to give it extra pop. And I'm always auto white balance, and I'll fix anything in post. Raw, yeah, you keep a lot more information, and you spend a whole lot more time editing. So when you're editing hundreds of pictures, it can take a lot longer. And I did little questions on Instagram on stories, and I was like, yeah, I decided I'll shoot in RAW today and post the pictures. And everyone was like, yeah, I can tell a big difference. I'm like, no, they were JPEG. And they're like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I like RAW, but for sports, you really don't need it. That's what I think anyway. Like, as long as your settings are right in camera, you can make enough adjustments on a JPEG file that it'll be just as good.
You never run into issues with the auto white balance? Because like in video, we would run into issues if we had an auto white balance in a gym that has bad lighting and you're kind of moving around in that. But photography, with photography, you don't really have that same issue, I guess.
For me personally, the only time I struggle with it is if the gym has different light tones and different angles. Like the gym I was at yesterday, so I was on the left corner. Everything from the foul line straight, it was perfect white balance in auto. As soon as you turned, there was a huge yellow overcast. So it was just, okay, well, I've got to pick and choose which one am I going to do. And I just chose to stay in auto, and then I fix anything in post. Now, there's some high schools that'll have, oh my God, I've been to a few high schools of this year where they had a white light, a green light, a purple light, and it's like a rainbow.
Yeah.
There is no white balance.
Or if you have big windows as well, it sort of messes up with the lights.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, but white balance, it doesn't exist in some of these gyms. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly. You have to choose.
Yeah, so black and white is often a good default.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
I was going to ask you, like, as someone, especially as someone like you who learned everything yourself, how do you get to a point where you feel comfortable charging money and then going after clients? Like, is there like a specific point for you where you were kind of, yeah, from now on, I gotta start charging for this. I'm ready, or is it just waiting for people to reach out, basically?
Mine was so there were certain people in my area who I'll compare my work to. And my thing is, when I first started, I reached out to a lot of local people for advice, and only one person responded. Nobody else did. There was people telling him, my friend, I'm not helping him. Why would I help him? He'd get better than me. And it was very rough. So I just kept comparing, and I'm very competitive in life with all aspects. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get better than you, and you. So then I started improving, and then I'll compare my work to theirs, and then I'll find out what their prices were. And I was like, okay, well, I'm better than him now. So if that's his price, then I can start charging. And some people got upset because when I first started charging, me and my business model was I want to get the contracts, or I want to get all the bookings. So I lowballed everyone. And I know people don't like it. I lowballed everybody. And then over time, I started to raise my prices. And then when I started getting better than the majority of people around here, then I had a set price. And I didn't really reach out to a lot of people. Like I just get it from my referrals or from Instagram or Facebook. And then a couple of years later, I started getting contracts with like the University of Delaware, Delaware Tech, where I went to college, and then some local high schools and AAU events. So it just kind of gradually formed on its own from word of mouth.
So do you remember what your first paid gig was and how you landed it?
So my first paid gig is an interesting story. So there was an AAU event. It was in New Jersey that was 2 hours away. So I was going to go and shoot a few games and just shoot on spec, like shoot and hope that people bought them afterwards. But there was one team who said that they'd pay me. So at that time, I was totally fine with getting paid after the fact. So I went down, I shot 2 of the games. They lost both of the games. And I contacted the guy and he said, nah, we lost it. We don't want them. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want them? He said, we don't want them. I said, okay, well, I want my money. And he's like, nah, we're good. So that was a good learning lesson. So it was always upfront. So some people get bothered by it now, but I want 100% upfront. Like, I'm not leaving my house until I'm paid, unless it's a contract with a school or something where it's dependable. Because that one guy, he taught me a valuable lesson. And then with my next pay gig after that, it was a friend of mine called John, who has ran a semi-pro team over the past 5 years. And he paid me to go down and shoot his team. And he progressed up the levels, and he's got a good semi-pro team now in Reading, PA. And I've been his photographer for the past 2 seasons. And his season starts up on, where's my calendar? On the 13th of next month. So that's fun. So John Grosser from Reading Rebels.
So you have different business models, basically. Some people you'll have like a season thing going. Other ones you'll just show up and get paid afterwards by the people will buy pictures from you, and sometimes it's like going specifically somewhere for a dedicated amount of money.
I'm all over the place. My business model, like most people would say, it's horrific. But
well, I think it's good to have range and.
Hey, if you're getting paid, you're getting paid. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, I just kind of wing it, and then if I know, like, there's people who are booking me, I always take into account, like, when I know a person, like, if they haven't got a lot of money, and I know they haven't got a lot of money, and the kids haven't got money to pay for pictures, then I'll bring that price. I'll bring the price down as low as I can. Even if I take a L, I'm fine with it. But not all the time, but occasionally I like to do that.
Because it's good to diversify your income and have, like, different clients, and that's how you build your network as well, because maybe that job is not the most paying job, but by doing it, you'll meet someone, or someone will see your work, and from there you'll get another job that's paying a lot more and things like that. I remember when I started, back when I was still living in Australia, my first, when I still... Sorry, I don't know what's going on. When I started doing my sports videography, I had sort of a little agency, and but I had like one major client. Like, it was enough to make a living from, but it was one client. And so my accountant was like, dude, you gotta get another client, because it's good money, but if these guys decide tomorrow that they've moved on for whatever reason, like, you're fucked. So
there's not a lot of job security.
No, exactly. So you need at least 4 or 5 clients just to make sure that if you lose one, you can keep going. Like,
that's why I've never gone full time. Like, I'd never go full time just because of the lack of job security. And I've worked with the state of Delaware for 15 years, so I get my pension in another 10. So
that's cool.
I'm not losing that for anything.
Yeah, that's smart.
But getting burned by a client actually makes you grow, and it makes you realize, okay, now how do I avoid this problem next time? And I mean, I've had it with my own company, and when I've gotten burnt by clients, it's usually my fault because I didn't lay down the boundaries. I didn't do that. And like you, I have payment up front, and I even give discounts if they pay the full thing in front. Like, I'll do 3-month retainers and I'll give them payment plans, but you always start with the initial investment right away, which is the first month paid for. And I'll give like a 10-15% if they pay the whole 3 months right away or the whole 6 months right away, just because it saves me from chasing them for money. Like, I don't mind. I'm not trading my time for money, like, as an hourly thing. It's like, this is how much the project is. Well, no problem. If I put in a little extra and you paid in full and I'm not chasing, I'm saving myself time. So it's well worth the 15% discount.
Yep.
I hope none of them are listening to this podcast right now, though. But
so a funny thing as well that I always get, people always say I'm lying about, is I edit on my phone or my iPad. Like, I haven't got a MacBook or a computer. And my favorite is my phone. I started on my phone, and I'm a creature of habit. So I like being able to lay back on the couch And with these cell phones these days, the screens are actually better than a lot of the laptops. Now, of
Yeah.
course, now it's not great on
It's
your
smaller, but
eyes, and you just have to make sure that you zoom in at times to make sure that everything's good. But yeah, a lot of people say I'm lying and that I've really got a MacBook, and I'm like, I've got my phone and an iPad, and that's about it. And I prefer my phone. And whether it's college, high level, whether it's at the G League, any level, I guarantee you that 70% of it was done on my phone.
So actually, it's a good segue into the question I was going to ask. Because I was going to ask you, like, what would you recommend? What do you think is like the the bare minimum for a young? Sorry, I don't know what's going on today with me, but yeah, what would you say is like the bare minimum for like a kid, for someone, a young kid who's just starting and just wants to be able to have something good enough to improve basically as a sports photographer and learn and get better.
So if it's a brand new person, um, one, get an entry level camera, either used off Marketplace on Facebook or B&H in a double armor and a 50 mil, and get the free Lightroom app on your phone, and you're good to go. But as long as you have a 50 millimeter, if you're doing indoor sports, you can cover basically any sport indoors with a 50 mil. Now, are you going to be able to get all the action? No, but if you're a beginner, it's about getting them cool, like the solid shots. And if you can bring the aperture down, then when you're shooting in all the crappy light gyms, then a 50 mil, it works great. So entry level camera, 50 mil, and the free Lightroom app on your phone.
So since we were talking about phones and that before, right? So you have a huge Instagram following. You have 118,000 followers, right? So how did you build that audience?
All right, so that's funny too. Back in December of 2023, I had like I think it was 28,000 followers. There's a guy called Hansel Emmanuel, if you've heard of him. He's a kid, a basketball player with one arm, and he plays in
Oh yeah,
Division One
yeah, yeah.
college now. So I saw that he was at a workout in New York, and me and my friend host these summer workouts at the 76ers, a field house at the G League place, and it's about 10 minutes from my work. So I was like, and it's all like local Division One players, semi-pro players or professional players. So I was like, I'm gonna shoot my shot here. So I sent him a DM, and I was like, if you want to come down, then you're more than welcome. I didn't expect him to come, and then he messaged me and said, "Can I bring 3 of my friends and I'll come?" I said, "You can bring as many friends as you want." So he said, "Yeah, I'm coming." So I told my friend, the Lamar Mason, and I finished work, and then I headed down there. And in my head, I'm like, "No, he's not coming." So I walk in, he's not there. I'm like, "Damn." So I start shooting, and then 10 minutes later, he comes walking in. I'm like, "Oh, snap." So he gets dressed, he starts playing. I take pictures, and in that, so on that evening, I'm just focused on him. He's got a cool story. He's a really good player. So I got home, and it was late. And I was like, "Oh, I'm excited. I want to post these because they're really good." So I posted them, and it's the post, it's pinned on the top of my profile. And then I woke up in the morning, and I thought like my phone was broke, because it was like, like, when you get alerts, it was like
Yeah.
as thin as can be, alerts all the way down. And then I scrolled, and I was like this, and I was like, what the heck's going on? So I opened Instagram, and it was like 50,000 likes overnight. And I had 10,000 followers overnight. And I'm like, what the hell? And then over the next week, like, it kept getting more and more. So then in 2023, in December, I started thinking to myself, because it become stagnant for about 6 months. And the Instagram CEO had said that they're not prioritizing pictures no more. It's about video.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I didn't want to do video. I didn't want to do reels. I didn't want to speak on camera. I've got a stutter. I'm doing okay today, but it can get bad. So I'm like, if I do reels, it's going to take me 5, 10, 15 takes to get it right. And then I was like, my following is mainly players and sports communities. Yeah, there was some photographers and videographers in there, I said, that's not my audience. My audience is photographers and videographers. So I was like, man, I'm gonna start doing reels. And I knew I was going to self-sabotage it for a while because I know if I started posting content that the players and sports people would leave. So after the first week, I lost about 5,000 followers. And I was like, damn, what have I done? Am I dumbing behind on here doing videos? And then like the week later, one popped and I got 5,000. Then another popped and so on. So over like the next year, I got up to like 1,000. And then how I tell people now is in this day and age, like tons of people, millions of people can take really good photographs and do video too. But what people want to do is like the part of social media is being social. So what I found out is people want to be able to put a name, a face, a voice, and a personality with the work. So then I just kind of stuck into that. So doing reels and being part of the community and building a community, it just kind of started going hand in hand. So that's how we're growing. And then since December 23 until now, it's gone pretty quick.
No, it's very impressive. And it's funny because we have a similar story because when I started my YouTube channel, it was a bit, originally I wanted to do more like documentaries and stories about athletes and stuff, which I was doing, but I can't do that weekly because it's hard to get that level of access. So eventually it sort of morphed into something else, but I did all that to say, I did a lot of UFC for a while because I was working in the UFC a lot. That. And, yeah, like I love it too. Well, I'm a very casual fan though. Like I'm not very, I've never done it myself, but yeah, just, when I transitioned to doing sports videography, I could feel right away that this was more like the way that I could make like something out of this and not just be a guy that just posts videos on YouTube for posting videos. I could see how I could build a business behind it and make something out of that. So I focused on that, but my videos that were still getting the most views were all the UFC stuff, like all the, so that was getting most of the views. And then it gets to a point where the sports videography content doesn't really get it. Basically, it doesn't work because when it comes out, YouTube's going to show it to like, let's say 200 people. If most of them are subscribers because they liked my UFC content, then they're automatically not going to watch this. So YouTube shows it to 200 people. None of them watch it. So YouTube stops showing it to people. So I had to basically I didn't delete them, but I made private basically all my most popular videos. I had videos had like millions of views and stuff. They're all private now. They don't exist because it's like, who is it that you actually want to talk to? And that's who you have to focus on. And like I've actually still to this day, when I post a video, the first, let's say hour, for sure, I will lose at least 2 or 3 subscribers. Probably people that were there from pre-sports videography days. They're like, and every time I see that, I'm happy because I'm cleaning up I'm cleaning up my fan base. I'm keeping the right ones, the ones that are there for the content that I'm producing. And for those people who were there for my old content, it's better for them and for me that we both go our separate ways and move on with our lives and do our own thing. But yeah, no, it's very interesting that you have basically the same story on Instagram, and then you're also doing a lot of educational content. So it was that sort of a conscious effort to try to help sort of younger kids coming up, or was that a way to sort of create, like you said, create content that is more about you and your everyday life and struggles and things like that? Like, what was the thinking behind that?
It's just all part of like the things I like to do on Instagram is post my pictures, and then it's to try and help people, especially beginners. Like I get messages and people who are pros. Oh, well, why are you telling people I'm like, you have your way of doing it. You go ahead and do it. I'm trying to give back to the beginners and the moderate level of photographers. So I'm beginning, I try and give little tips and tricks on how to improve stuff. And yeah, I just want to try and help people. And then, of course, like I like to put my personality and do some jokes, and then even if it's a relatable stuff, or if some people think it's kind of controversial, but yeah, it's funny about it losing followers, because last week I lost about 1,000, and it was because I actually went to the dentist and got a root canal, so I wasn't a happy camper already. I came out, I chilled in the parking lot and put Instagram on, and the first video I saw is someone had posted a child who was reacting to a portrait. Um, I hope you don't mind me saying on here, but the child is gay. Totally fine. So I go in the comments section, and grown men and women are being so rude and disrespectful. This is a middle school kid. A middle school kid. So I DM'd the guy, and I'm like, bro, turn the comments off at least. Like, I know it's gone super viral, like 300 million views. I said, but it's gone viral if for the wrong reason. Like, please turn the comments off. So he didn't get back to me. So I posted a Stitch video where it started off with that. And then I basically said, if you want to leave a negative comment on here or on his post, just don't follow me now, because I don't need you around here. And then he never got back to me. And then I saw he posted another video of the same thing. And my thing is, you're trying to double up on views, and that's exploiting the kid. So I left the comments on my post and tagged him, and I said exactly that. And then the next minute, now it's on Sports Center.
Oh,
And
really?
this little and this kid is getting dragged in the comments. So I said something else. So the guy actually reached out, and he said that the team and his parents were all on board for the whole time. It came a point, and the parents asked it to turn the comments off, and he did immediately. But me, like, I'm super protective. I think everyone should be able to be whoever they want to be, equal rights for everybody. And especially when it comes to women and kids, I get overprotective to the extreme. So me, I said what I said, and then we chatted in the DMs, and I said, I see where you're coming from. And he said, well, I appreciate where your heart was, and it was in the right place. And I said, I'll delete my comment saying that you were exploiting them. And he seems like a very nice guy. And he told me a bit about himself, so we ironed it out. But yeah, I lost a lot of followers, and I don't give a damn, because I'm willing to lose another 10, 20, 30,000 if you believe in the hate that was being said in them comments. Because it's about life. It's not about a follower count. Excuse me. It's not about a follower count, likes, views. It's life. Like, you got to respect the people in general a lot more than your Instagram accounts.
Yeah. And probably you may have lost 1,000, but there's probably tens of thousands
Right.
who saw what you said and said, like, oh, see, this is why I like this guy. And
Right.
they didn't write it. They didn't do anything like a like or a comment or whatever, but they felt it. And that's what matters.
Right.
So you don't do any marketing for your business? It's mostly you get a lot of contracts through word of mouth and through Instagram?
Yeah, no marketing. Occasionally, I run a Delaware page as well. Delaware has never got a lot of publicity exposure for their sports, especially basketball. Now, granted, in our level of play isn't the highest. So what I decided to do was I created a page for Delaware Sports Recruit, and I contacted all the creators in the area and said, anytime you post something, if you want to collaborate with me, every single time I'll accept it. I don't care if it's a beginner and it's entry-level pictures. If it's Delaware related, I accept it. So then occasionally I'll post on that page and just say I've got openings if anyone's interested. But outside of that, I don't really do any marketing. Like, at the moment, I've got him enough work or more than enough work that I can't really take on anymore, but the wife won't let me.
You
Which
have
is
so much
right.
work, you have so much work, but you're afraid to dive into this full time.
Oh, never. Yeah, the job security would kill me. I'm the kind of person that I can push things up to the grey line, so I have to have a job security.
Well, once you get the pension, maybe
Right,
that can be
yeah.
sort of your retirement.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
That's my plan.
I was gonna ask as well, like, what would be your advice for younger photographer who are trying to build like an online presence? What would you, what would you recommend? Would you recommend sort of the same path you were on? So start with like just action shots and then slowly transition into adding a bit more of yourself, or like, what would you think would be the best way to go about it?
My biggest thing is slow down. Like, it's going to take a while. There's
Yeah.
steps and it's a process. Like, don't go from here and say, I want all these followers, or I want to be able to get all this money. Like, you got to put time in. So at the start, it's just about, me personally, I believe, go around to different schools. Like, I know some good photographers in Delaware, young guys, but they only shoot at their school. And I'm like, you're not going to grow or get exposure if you're only at your school. So go around, travel around and shoot different teams in different areas. And then after that, I always tell them, so your photos are basically your portfolio on Instagram. The reels are what make you grow. So especially in the beginning, like I have photos now, because I like to take photos of other photographers and videographers. And it was always called as support other photographers. I didn't put videographers because I just thought it was too much. So it's support photographers, but it means both. So I post pictures. Every game I'm at, I take pictures of photographers and videographers, and I post them.
That's cool.
And people like them. And so some of them have got a lot of engagement and reach. But for the most part, especially when you're starting, just focus on shooting. Focusing on getting around in different areas and practicing, practice your editing and everything, and get your settings right. And then when it's time to go to the next level, you'll know. And then you start charging a little bit. And then once you have some valid information and knowledge, then you can start sharing it with people. But you don't want to start making reels if you don't know what you're talking about. Not that I'm the most not that I'm the most knowledgeable person, but I have some good tips I can give to people. And then I even tell them, like, if you want to do funny videos, then do that. It's with Instagram, like, if it's relatable, then people are going to relate. And if they relate, then if they relate, then they're going to share it and it will go off. But you got to put the effort in. Like, some people just don't want to put the effort in, which is fine, but just don't expect this if you're not willing to do this.
How much do those people appreciate the pictures you take of them doing their work? Like like I was given one time a photo of me filming a game by our photographer, and I had no idea he had taken the picture. And I just came in, and it was on my desk one morning, and I was like, "Wow, this is so nice." I still have it actually in my office. But how much do those people appreciate that? Because they're filming or photographing a game, and here you are taking pictures of them and showing them what they look like while they're doing that.
Yeah, so I get a lot of good feedback. Like people, and what I like is when I started doing it, a lot more people have started doing it now, like around in Delaware and our surrounding states. And I'm not saying like I spearheaded the movement, but a lot more people have started doing it. And at times they'll tag me and say, thanks, it's a G shot. I like this idea. But they like it. And what I've got is in my bio, there's a link for photographers, and it's an open link. It's free, and there's about 1,500 pictures of photographers, and they can just go on and download them.
That's cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And at some games, I have more fun as shooting at the photographers.
See, I take pictures of E when I see him at events, but they always look a bit creepy. And I send them to him after, and I look like a stalker, But yours are all pro, and people are happy to get them. When I send E a picture at an event, he's like, "Where are you?" And he's looking up for me.
See, I posted something today from yesterday's event, and my friend messaged me. He said, "Bro, please delete that picture of me. I look horrific." And I looked, and I was like, "Yeah, it's a little off-putting." I don't think about it. I'm just like, I want to get all these guys in, and then I wanted to find one of my friend, but he didn't like that one.
That's fair enough. Should we do a few quick rapid fire questions before we let you go on with your day? I know you have to work, and you're a very busy man. Do you want to start it off, Lance? I'll take the second one, and we'll go one and one. I think we got 4 or 5 of them.
4 or 5, yeah. So far, what's been the best moment you ever captured in sports photography?
It was a high school game between Roman Catholic from Philly and from Camden High School in New Jersey back in back in 2020, and it was in New Jersey. And there's a few of the kids in the NBA now, but it was the best it was a relatively small school. It was packed to the brim, and it was the atmosphere on top of the level of play. It was just unbelievable. And actually, the fire marshals came, and they were about to start taking people out because it was about 300-400 people over capacity. But I really enjoyed that for whatever reason. I've shot like bigger events, but that's what I liked most of that one game.
So what's the one piece of gear you couldn't live without?
So it took me a long time to get. It would be my Nikon 300 2.8. And that's for outdoor sports, but that was like something that I really wanted it for a long time.
All right, next one. Dream sporting event you'd love to take photos at?
So there's 2, and I can't decide which one, either the NBA or UFC.
Next one. Final advice for aspiring sports photographer.
Again, like I said earlier, take your time and enjoy the process. Don't expect it too much or too soon. Don't focus on the equipment and the gear. Just focus on getting the fundamentals down, the settings, and learn how to edit.
And now we'll give you a chance. Where can people follow you and learn from you?
So my Instagram is at G-Shot Pictures. I actually hate the name, but I formulated it when I first started. I thought it was catchy. But now it's popular. When I go places, people call me G-Shot, and I feel way too old to be called a G-Shot. Yeah, G-Shot Pictures. And I just started in a TikTok, but I'm not really on it much. It's mainly Instagram.
Well, the one thing that to me stood out about you today is how much of a giving person you are. And I feel like you've given a lot to Delaware. You've given a lot to the sports photography community, and you've given a lot to us today. So I just want to thank you for being on the show. It's very greatly appreciated. And
thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure hearing your story, and I guess that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare.
As my first podcast, I had fun. Take care.